All right. Welcome in second audio interview from a series devoted to simplified pronunciations of names. Today we are going to talk about simplified glossary for Polish tourists with pronunciation based on Polish spelling. And I welcome my two guests, Mr. Roy Stephen Jones from University of Applied Sciences in Tarnów. I'm using the official name. And Mr. Kacper Rubinowski, who is a student at the University of Applied Sciences. Mr. Stephen Jones is a lecturer. And I would like to start by asking my guests to say a few words about themselves, what they do, where they are based, and whatever they find worth saying. Mr. Stephen Jones. Mr. Roy Stephen Jones, please tell us about your background, your interests.
Okay. I've been living here in Tarnów for over 20 years. It's been a while. In that time, I've been consistently teaching. I've been teaching in the second high school down the road here and in here in Academia Tarnowska. Interest, hobbies, and such like. I'm kind of a person who's kind of interested in everything, as Kacper should know from our lessons. I like to be interested in a lot of things. So there's no kind of definitive list, but generally, let me see, languages, cultures, the technology and languages, so on and so forth. A little bit of intercultural communications and writing. These are pretty much my focuses, if I will.
And where do you originally come from?
Well, I originally come from Dublin, so I'm from North County Dublin. So I'm originally from a place called Bayside, which is a small little area of suburbia, but originally it's a place called Howth, which was a small fishing village just north of Dublin. Let me see. And yeah, that's pretty much where I'm from. I'm what we call colloquially a Northsider.
Thank you. And Mr. Kacper Rubinowski, our student, tell us about yourself, about your background, interests.
Okay, so my name is Kacper Rubinowski. As you know, I'm 23 years old, and I'm an English philology student. I was born in Poland, Tarnów, but when I was 7 months old, my parents decided to move to England. So I was raised in England in Hounslow, Twickenham. I finished primary school there and basically spent 13 years in the UK. Then we came back. So I think this is the greatest reason why I have such an interest in English and English culture in general. I'm interested in languages, all sorts of languages, especially English, of course. I also like a lot of sports, especially rugby, as I live next to the Twickenham Stadium, and I was a very often guest at the stadium and matches. And I think that's pretty much it as well. I'm on my third year, so I'm graduating in summer, and hopefully it goes as planned.
Good. Now, please, Kacper, tell us a few words about your project and go over to the questions you've prepared to Roy Stephen Jones.
So my project is about, it's a glossary of Irish names, Irish place names, and places in Northern Ireland as well. And searching through the bookshelves in Empik, for example, I've stumbled upon travel guides regarding Ireland and Northern Ireland. And both of them, I stumbled upon two, and both of them had a lack of transcription, which was quite problematic, especially for for Polish-speaking tourists which visit Ireland, as the place names in Ireland are quite often confusing. I think you would agree that even for some Irish people, it's also quite difficult. And we came up with the idea of creating such a glossary with simplified transcription, but adapted to Polish orthography, so that Polish-speaking tourists can have a kind of tool when they visit Ireland. And I think it's quite practical and useful. We also supplemented the glossary with audio recordings, which can further help the Polish-speaking tourist in Ireland. So I think this is the main aim of the project. And now moving to the questions. You've already answered question 1, but where in Ireland are you from, and has moving abroad had an impact on your dialect or accent?
Moving abroad, I don't think has had much of an impact on my accent. In fact, I find that my accent has always been not too strongly Irish. And, it actually depends on the situation. If I go back home, yeah, my accent does get a bit stronger, but generally it stays more or less the same. It hasn't changed so much. The only kind of thing that I would say that definitely moving abroad has done I would say I have to sometimes recharge my language. In other words, every so often I kind of go, I know that word, but I haven't used it for so long that I have to kind of pause just a little bit. Now, to a non-native speaker, it wouldn't mean anything. But to a native speaker, that little pause is a vast chasm of not like remembering, let's say, that word. Yeah.
Thank you. The next question. It is often said that Irish accent can vary significantly even across short distances. To what extent do you think this is true, and which region or accent would you consider the most challenging to understand even for Irish speakers?
Ooh, okay, yes. Accents can change nearly anything from 5 to 15 kilometers, depending on where you live. If we're talking about difficult accents, we're definitely looking at the Kerry accent, or sometimes the very much stronger or a very strong Donegal accent. Those they're actually at they're at the ends of the island. So you have this, yeah, they are the two accents that basically definitely people have a problem with. Because people will speak quickly, people will speak in their own pronunciation of a word, and as such, yeah, people will have a problem with those accents, if anything.
Does accent carry any notable social connotations or associations in Ireland in terms of class, region, or identity?
Absolutely. Whether I'm a North Sider or someone's a South Sider of Dublin, you can tell exactly what area and region someone is from, and there are definite reactions depending on where people think you're from. If you're from the country, well, then you have of course a country accent, and if someone like me who's a Dubliner, people will react to me differently. Not in a very much of a social class way, but at one stage, yes, I would say that people would definitely judge you by your accents. They would judge, what kind of education, what kind of background you come from. They would also judge you on your pronunciation, like whether you're educated or not, this kind of thing. So yeah, there are definite differences in how people will treat each other depending on which area they come from and what accent they actually possess.
Okay. Is standard British English generally well understood in Ireland? And when it comes to place names, the Irish people tend to use anglicized versions or Irish language versions?
That generally, let's break that down. Okay, so in generally standard, what we would call standard British English is definitely understood. But we would probably use more Irish pronunciation for place names than an anglicized version. You would actually notice this when British people come to Ireland and then they try to pronounce the place names and they have problems. Or even, let's say, the same you would find in places of like Scotland. People would go up north in Britain, people go up north to Scotland, and you have this Gaelic influence upon the language. And people from the south sometimes have problems pronouncing certain place names. So,
okay. In your view, is it important for tourists to aim for native-like pronunciation, or is being understood a sufficient goal? Or should visitors make an effort to learn the Irish language version of place names?
I think people should make an effort to learn the actual place name. It's a part of that area's identity. People feel strongly about that. And also, if you don't have the proper place name, locals will find it very confusing because they don't know where you're talking about because you're not using the right pronunciation, even though you think you are, but you're not. So making an effort to learn the local name or the local given name to a place, I think is extremely important, especially if you want to socialize with the people of that area.
So following up to that question, because different dialects and accents are present in different counties of Ireland, so how can a Polish tourist, for example, know? So, for example, if a person in Dublin considers an accent, how should I ask this question? Because it's quite difficult to learn each dialect, each accent of Ireland in different counties. For example, if you're visiting Cork, for example, and then you want to go to Dublin, so how do you find a universal dialect for both places if you want to visit both on your journey?
I think when you talk about Cork and Dublin, yeah, there's a definite accent change, but it's not so much that we can't actually understand each other. And for someone visiting the country, it should only take a short time for them to be able to adapt. I would say there are certain places, yes, where the accent is very strong or considered very strong, that we might actually have a problem. As I said, Kerry is this southern area is kind of infamous for it in one sense. As I remember, there's another place, RD or Ardé, as they say, is also kind of a slight problem for people to understand. But other than that, no, it shouldn't be a problem. It's one of those. It's just one of those things that you learn to adapt with. You learn to compensate when you're in that area. It's the same if you're living in. Let me see. For us, even going up to the north of Ireland, where the north of Ireland accent is much stronger difference between the accents, and even then, we seem to find a way to muddle through. We just seem to make it work. But generally, it's usually, when it comes to place names, it's that Irish Gaelic thread that runs through all the place names that makes it easy to understand. It would be very rare for me to find someone who, let's say, came from Cork to Dublin and would give me a poor pronunciation of a place. That would be very rare.
Are there any specific sounds in Irish place names that are particularly difficult for non-native speakers, like Polish speakers, to pronounce?
That is something. Let me see. I'm trying to think of a specific place name that would be. Galway can be a problem. They pronounce the letters. Let me see, where else can be a problem? trying to think. The only thing that, funny enough, the only thing that seems to come to mind is Edinburgh. Everyone seems to call it Edinburgh, and it's, we say Edinburgh. Yeah, that comes through. So yeah, the erg and the berg thing that comes through from some place names. It's the only thing that pops in at the moment. I'm trying to think of anywhere else that might be. Donegal, Leitrim, Sligo. Yeah, sometimes places like Ballina. Some people call it Ballina because of how. So the people will say, "Oh yeah, we're going to Ballina tomorrow." It's like, where is Ballina? When it's actually Ballina. Yeah, Sligo, easy enough. Let me see. Trying to think of any other place that just pops into my head at the moment. Kilkenny, no, that's fine. No, there's one or two little, maybe the main towns or cities would actually have a problem, but smaller villages may have issue because
What about? What about? I've never heard of the place before. I've done the glossary. It's spelled COBH.
Cove.
Cove and
in Cork. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically,
there's the BH that comes from the Irish. Yeah. So it's cove, but it's the v that comes from like words like V. Yeah.
Can I cut in for a second?
Yes, you may.
It's when you gave the example of Edinburgh, it's basically GHs and BHs.
Yeah.
Basically,
GHs and BHs. Yeah, you're right.
Because there's no one single rule.
It's things like that. Actually, the ones who seem to have the most difficulty are, to be honest, the ones who seem to have the most difficulty are American tourists. When they come to Dublin and they tell us where they're going on their next trip or where the next place they're going to, and we're kind of going, where exactly now? Because they don't have I think they just don't have that influence upon their language. They don't have those soundings upon their language at all. Like we're used to even actually being and going out on a limb here, maybe because we're European and we're so used to encountering so many different languages so close to each other, we're able to adapt a bit better. But if you have people coming from America where, okay, yes, they do have Spanish and other languages, but English is such a primary language there that when they actually come to places like Ireland, unless they have been taught those names, like from family or because they're Irish Americans, they seem to have a problem with the pronunciation of some places. Like the example, Cove. They can't get that BH, the Cobh. Yeah, they can't get that name.
Are you familiar with any differences between the dialects of Ireland and Northern Ireland?
Yeah, I am. I studied in a small town called Sligo, which is up the north, and we would sometimes travel up to Derry. We'd cross the border into Northern Ireland. I did have family in a place called Cumber, which is outside Belfast. And once or twice we went up there. And yeah, the dialect changes can be, as I said before, we can actually understand each other. But there are times when the accent and such like can be just strong enough. The differences can be just strong enough where, you have to catch a beat. You have to kind of go, hang on, say that again.
So you can recognize a Northern Irishman from an Irishman.
Oh, yeah. You can definitely, absolutely. You'll definitely catch it.
As I mentioned, the glossary will also include audio recordings alongside the written transcriptions. Do you think audio is essential for learning correct pronunciation in this context?
Yes. Absolutely. I think just reading alone is not going to actually totally grasp the actual soundings unless you actually have, pre-existing experience of, living in Ireland or living like this way where you're shifting from country to country, where, you're used to having these changes in your life, in your spoken language. You do need some sort of maybe audio MP3 download or something for you to kind of get an ear for the place names.
Okay. And last two questions.
Okay.
Do you think a pronunciation glossary of this kind would be genuinely useful for a Polish-speaking tourist visiting Ireland?
Absolutely. I think it would be not just for Polish-speaking tourists. A lot of our place names have a lot of our history. Dun, meaning fort or castle. So the castle's not there anymore, but it's still called Dunleary. You still have these things that are a part of the place names. So when if people don't actually understand that, if people don't grasp that the importance of that name, then they're missing out on something of the culture, the language, and so on and so forth.
Okay, and one last question, a bit personal this time, because as you know, I'm a bit of a fan of Conor McGregor. I know you are not, but and as well as McGregor, I'm a fan of Cillian Murphy from Peaky Blinders. And when I listen to the interviews, it quite fascinates me because they represent like quite opposite poles of the Irish accent dialect.
Absolutely.
I think Conor McGregor is of course he's from Dublin, but I don't know if he kind of represents the social working class accent. That's what I read.
For Dublin, he does.
Yeah, and Cillian Murphy on the other side is from Cork, so I've read it's kind of the posh accent dialect.
Yeah, insofar as that he's a part of the acting group of people. Yeah, he's a part of that culture. I personally just think he's just another Cork guy. So I don't really see it that much. I suppose, yes, if he was, let's say more working class Cork, if you will, he'd have a higher pitch to the tone of his voice. The pitch would be just a little bit higher. He would also speak a lot faster. His language would be very much rapid fire, where he is not that when he's speaking in an interview. He's far more, his speech patterns are far more leveled, far more paced. But this is something that also comes from, spending years learning to be an actor and learning how to have proper diction and, being able to present oneself linguistically. So, that would be definitely the difference. I would honestly say if Cillian Murphy wanted to actually switch into a far more working class Cork accent, I think he could do it in a heartbeat. He just switch it, but after years of being an actor, he's expected to have a certain standard of language, a certain standard of voice, if you will.
Yeah, because it seems like when I listen to them, they're like from different countries, basically. So what are like the key differences between a Dublin dialect and a Cork dialect? Is it
that's nearly a whole podcast all to itself.
Yeah.
To be honest. The basic thing is, as it's kind of been explained to me, the Dublin area, or what was known as the Pale, was the last real area that was controlled by Britain, until and such like. So Dublin has always had a certain separation from the rest of the country, if you will, and that's maybe one side of it. So there's a certain historical factor there, it's kind of like for a Dubliner, we usually seem to have a deeper voice, deeper tone. I think that when it comes to how Ireland used to be, Dublin has always been the more industrial end of things. So a little bit rougher, a little bit tougher, a little bit, the docks, this kind of work, laboring work in this kind of sense. Where in the country, once you leave Dublin, and I would say so even to a certain extent today, it's okay. I'm not saying it's an easy life; it's a country life, but it's a different way of living, a different perspective, a different ways of looking at the world. So it's kind of nearly the same difference from being whether you're from London or you're from Yorkshire. It's literally kind of the same difference in that sense. So you're talking about like two very distinct different areas within the islands, if you will. If you're a Dubliner, well, then you're definitely city, city life, industrial. Whereas if you're outside of Dublin, you've had these traditions, which are, I'm trying to pick my words very carefully here, because I don't want to say softer, because that would be wrong, but just a different pace of life, let's put it that way. And as such, that may have affected why when you meet someone from Cork and you meet someone from Galway, the accents maybe are a little bit more similar than meeting someone from Dublin. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. So these were the questions. I think we can move on to the comparison.
Right. Thank you for your questions, Kacper, and for your very interesting, informative answers, Roy. Now I will share my screen and produce a list of words with spellings only and 2 columns of versions marked with A and B. We'll see it in a moment. All right. So there we are. I'll be reading each word following the simplified transcription, which will be displayed later on. And I will mark each version. I will say A and say the word, then B1, B2, say each version. For three names, there are 2-3 versions. Some of it is a bit experimental, therefore the multiple versions. The names are pretty well known, popular, and I will be speaking with a heavy Polish accent because the transcription is based on Polish spelling, and I assume that the most naive user would have no prior knowledge of English. What I'll observe is word stresses will be closely observed because the rhythm has to be shown. And I will ask you, Roy, for your opinion. Say which you prefer.
Okay.
So just one preference, maybe 2 preferences. If anything needs a comment, the comments will be welcome. Number 1A, Dublin. B1, Dublin. B2, Dublin. B3, Dublin.
B1 is better.
B1, which is Dublin.
Dublin, yeah, is better.
So you wouldn't go for Dublin?
Dublin, like as in, that's far too... You could go Dublin as an accent.
Yeah.
And
so
you
accept the most standardized version.
That would be the most standard answer.
Good.
B2 is more of a working, is more of a North Sider accent sound to it.
All right, so I'm marking B1 as the answer here, and I will also mark it on my sheet. Number 2, A, Grafton Street. B, Grafton Street.
Neither.
I repeat once again. Which would be tolerable? A, Grafton Street, Grafton Street.
B would be more tolerable.
More tolerable. So we get this level of tolerance. 3. A. Molly Malone statue. B. Molly Malone statue.
I would say again. Just repeat.
I'll say it again, of course. A.
Yeah, please.
Molly Malone statue. B. Molly Malone statue.
B.
Good. Number 4. A. Trinity College. B. Trinity College.
B.
Number 5. A. Kilkee. B. Kilkee.
B.
6. We've talked about this before.
Mm-hmm.
A. Cobb. B. Cove.
B.
7. A. Ballyshannon. B. Ballyshannon.
B.
8. A. Erigol. B. Erigo.
Mm-hmm.
I'll repeat oneself.
Yes, please.
Once again. A. Erigol. B. Erigo.
B again.
Number 9, we also mentioned that. A. Galway. B1. Galway. B2. Galway.
B1.
Number 10. A. Kilmacduagh. B. Kilmacduagh.
B.
11. A. Dingle. B. Dingo.
B.
12. A. Limerick. B. Limerick.
B.
Number 13. A1. Douse. A2. Doubt. B. Douf.
B.
14. A. Hill of Tara. B. Hill of Tara.
B.
And finally, 15. A. St. Colum's Cathedral. B. St. Colum's Cathedral.
B.
Right, I will display the glossary now. Basically, it's all B, answers B, and twice B1. So I will underline, I will mark, and all those ones that are preferable. So concerning number 1, we talked about it. Then concerning number 9, going for Galway rather than Galway, you went for the front Irish L, which is a low.
Yep.
In other cases, you tolerated English U, like in dingo. You preferred U at the end than L, for example, in A. So when we return to 11, for example, you went for dingo rather than dingle.
Right. Yeah, but we wouldn't say dingle.
Right.
Dingle.
Definitely. Dingle.
So
Definitely.
it wouldn't be all. It'll be just dingle.
Yes, because the grapheme we chose with Kacper is a compromise. Because Polish hasn't got a L sound, but it has a W sound, which is the Southern British, Southern English way of dealing with the sound. So it seems that our expectations, our kind of proposals for simplified graphemes seem to be working well. Right.
Yeah, it's easier for if it's a Polish person pronouncing it, well then it's working.
It's working.
It's working.
And I was trying
it's as close as possible.
Right. And of course, coupled with audio recordings, which Patrick has been preparing, it should do a good job. Kacper, I'm sorry, I said Patrick. Kacper, did you try using parts of the glossary with any polls?
Yes, I have with a couple of them, actually, my friends and my family. And I specifically chose people who don't have a wide knowledge of English and accent, because it's mostly aimed for people of, that don't have any knowledge of IPA transcription and anything like that. And it turned out pretty well, very similar to the even native approach of standard English. So I was quite happy with that, and I think it's on the right track.
Yeah, so some elements might be a little bit more like guiding elements. What intrigued me most in Roy's output was the preference for the standard R sound in Dublin. So we would generally avoid local sounds, unless.
Yeah, I mean, with the second Dublin, you would hear most people say it, but the truth is, if we're talking about Polish people pronouncing it, it would be Dublin. Right. We wouldn't expect a foreign person coming to the country to sound with the lower U in there.
All right.
That's the first thing. And the second thing would be if someone Polish was to use try to use the lower U in Dublin, it usually doesn't sound good.
It does sound good. It doesn't create positive feelings then.
Yeah. Actually, there's isn't there one of the girls from the weekend studies? She's been living in Dublin.
Yeah. I remember. I recall.
Yeah, she would be interesting to actually put that test to and hear her pronunciation.
But if a tourist spends some more time locally, they'd be imitating local accents anyway.
Oh yeah, eventually yes, and that would be fine. But sometimes when people are first pronouncing the words, it just doesn't sound right.
All right. So someone based in Dublin for a longer time, a Pole based in Dublin for a longer time, would be welcome to say Dublin.
Yeah, they would adapt, but when
right.
initial visitors try to imitate, it just doesn't sound right.
All right, I see the mechanism very clearly. So at the first contact, they'd rather use standardized versions.
Yes, exactly.
Good.
Because as I said before, it's quite it's quite impossible to choose one variety, one version, because there's so many different dialects. Each person in Ireland is going to pronounce it differently. So I think we had to go for a compromise and choose one specific variation.
Yeah. It's this thing where with the accents is that there's kind of a kind of a universal standard, if you will, that we all kind of understand, and then our accent is then applied on top of that. It's like, as I think I said to you in class, it's not these, thous, and those. It's these, thous, and those. When you're in school, you're corrected. If you're a Dublin kid, you'd say these, thous, and those. You won't pronounce the th. And then when you're in school, you're corrected. No, it's these, thous, and those. So
we went for this simplification with Kacper. Using Polish sound, these, vowels, and those is better than these, thous, those, or these, thous, those. These, thous, those would be the most obnoxious version, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Not found in local accents. Although locally, you would have T's and D's in Ireland.
Oh yeah. You would. They would definitely come into the conversation. Absolutely. It would be just there. That's just how it happens. All of a sudden you start just saying it. You don't even consciously think of it anymore. And I find that sometimes even when I go home and then I come back, I have to kind of dial myself back a little bit because I'm like, those are these and thous, and students are looking at me kind of a little strange, like, where did that come from? You know, so I have to kind of concentrate on my these, thous, and those a little bit, you know, just the way it is, I suppose.
Right. Thank you very much for your assessment of our glossary, for the valuable comment and guiding kind of critical remarks. And with this, we'll be finishing this program. And thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jones. I really appreciate it. I know you don't have really a lot of free time, so I appreciate it very much.
Thank you both, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.